Epstein. They wanted to come up with all these issues and all this stuff to try to find some political foothold instead of just give people the damn $600 and, heck, give them 2 or 3 payments of $1,200. So because the Democrats wanted to play means testing about it, the Republicans did just one payment of $1,200 and a couple $100 or $500 per kid. Okay, whatever. So Trump, though, outmaneuvered the Democrats. The Democrats had no foothold. They had no objection. The only thing that they were able to mount was that Trump packaged this, and Trump and the Republican leaders wisely, and by the way, corruptly, because they're awful people. Before I get too deep down this rabbit hole of this topic, I want to say this about the Republicans so folks understand. Republicans are despicable monsters who care about business, care about profit over people's lives. I just don't know what the Democrats are right now. Okay, back into this rant. So what is happening is that the Republicans and Democrats passed this bill by almost unanimous support, and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, that basically was a relief bill that was mostly geared towards corporations. Trillions of dollars were towards subsidizing corporations, subsidizing the banking system, keeping it stable. $250 billion, which sounds like a lot of money until you remember, compared to the trillions of dollars that were given, is very small. Very, very small. When you're given $4 or $5 trillion, now keep in mind, folks, for all you people who aren't math nerds at home, and I'm not, $250 billion, last time I checked, was a quarter. So you needed to times that by 4 to get to $1 trillion. Much of this boondoggle, which had a kicker, which will get this whole thing to in between $4 and $5 trillion in terms of need to shore up the banking system. Much of this boondoggle. So every time the stock market goes down, by the way, they will inject cash in to immediately phony is not the right word. They will prop the system up. So the system will go up on crutches. And they can do it because America still at this point, for however long, is still the reserve currency. I don't know, last time that this happened, other countries started really balking. I don't know how much longer this is going to take place, where America is going to be the reserve currency, but it is right now. So they can afford to do this, is my point. So they packaged this bill, put this little sweet-tasting coating over the top of it, and they passed it. And it was wonderfully passed. And everybody was happy. And everybody cheered. And Bernie Sanders gave a speech on the floor that was like, oh, God, you Republicans, you were just so upset that somebody might get a little bit of money, blah, 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 blah. And a couple days later, Bernie dropped out. Okay. This is what brings me to the heart of the podcast. And I want to say thank you for hanging in with me. Because at this point, I've been podcasting here for a number of minutes and haven't gotten to my point. I've been podcasting almost 18 minutes, and normally I like to hit right away with my main point. But here's my main point on this. Some of you folks are lost at sea because you put all of your marbles in the Bernie Sanders bucket, and I love you for it. You're good people. You really are. You don't put yourself in the Bernie Sanders bucket without being a good person. But here's the deal. It doesn't matter that you're good. The Republicans and the Democrats in particular, it's a crony game. It's cronyism. And we don't have the luxury of mourning over Bernie because Bernie made a choice. Bernie made a choice. Just in the same way, if you're hearing my words, you have a choice to play the game or to not play the game. And here's what the game is. Let me tell you the rules of the game. The rules of the game is this. You better get in line and support Joe Biden. And yes, dementia, memory issues, terrible record, whatever. You better get your butt in line and support Joe. Now here's why you better support Joe. Because if Joe wins, you didn't have anything to do with it. And if Joe loses, and I'm speaking totally to Bernie supporters, if Joe loses, it's all your fault. That's the game that's being played. That's the trap that's being played. How does that make you feel? If Joe wins, you had nothing to do with it, but if he loses, it's because you didn't support him. I really want to know. Because I think it's a bunch of crap myself. I really think it's a bunch of crap. So I'm going to be putting a poll up on my Twitter feed at Toby M. Green, and I'm going to try to do a poll elsewhere, which is asking this question. If Joe Biden wins the election, how do you feel that if he wins, you had nothing to do with it, and if he loses, it's all your fault? How does that make you feel? It's less of a poll and more of an open question. Because it's a scam. So I'm going to answer my own question because it's my podcast and I get to do what I want because I pay the $4.99 a month to have this dumb podcast. It's a scam. We have millions of workers unemployed right now who are facing an antiquated unemployment system. And I got to tell you, it's a scam. And I mean that to say this. I don't care if you're a Bernie supporter or a Biden supporter or whoever support you want. But it is Biden's job and it's his campaign's job to win over votes. And by the way, FYI, for all you jerks out there who are like, Hillary would have won if not for Bernie. And all you real jerks out there who are like, Al Gore would have won if it wasn't for Nader. Go get lost. Go pound sand. To all yells. It is the job of a presidential candidate to win over the votes. That's how this game is played. 33 to 34% of the American public do not vote because of whatever reason. Many of them, the vast majority of them, are turned off by politics. They don't think anything can be done. Some of them can't vote because they showed up to the ballot box and the line was out for 3 hours and said, I can't vote here. This is ridiculous. Some of them have records and would love to vote. It doesn't matter. About at least a third, almost a fourth of the American electoral politic cannot vote in elections or will not vote for a variety of reasons. Hillary Clinton would have won the last election. She would have won the last election if in each and every single one of the states that were in the Midwest, she had gotten roughly 1,000 extra votes, 100,000 extra votes, I'm sorry. If she had gotten 100,000 extra votes in each one, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, she would be president of the United States right now. And by the way, in this crisis, part of me wishes she was. Part of me doesn't know if she would have been good in it. But I have to believe that she would have been decent. Don't know. Don't care. It's not. It's all ahistorical. She'll never be president. I just bring this up just to say to you, if you're hearing my voice, if you've listened for this much of the podcast, right now, today, don't mourn. Organize. Now, how do we organize? What does that mean to organize? What does it mean after Bernie? Because Bernie was such a spearhead. Well, first of all, the question you should put to anybody who wants to darken your door is, are you going to betray me at the last moment the way Bernie did? Because Bernie betrayed you. And he betrayed me and betrayed everyone else. And here's how he betrayed us. He didn't betray us like consciously. He didn't do it. It wasn't a matter of integrity. He betrayed us because after he had his heart attack, he stopped fighting. He wasn't in this to win. Bernie never wanted to be president. And how do I know that? Because when the going got tough, he had a chance, folks. In February of 2020, Bernie was leading in every single state on Super Tuesday. He was going to win. And you know what? He didn't. And you know why he didn't win? Because he showed up to a gunfight with a knife in his hand. Barack Obama showed up with a gun. That's why he didn't win. And that's the truth of the matter. Because when it came time to progressively push, Bernie sat back and went, well, let the polls be what they're going to be. Let them do what they're going to do. Obama didn't do that. Obama got on the phone because Obama was a community organizer. He was smart. I hate him. I think he was worthless. I think he is a bigger enemy at this point than anybody else. And I hate saying that because he was one of the best spoken presidents we've ever had, but I hate him. What did he do? He got on that phone and he said, Pete Buttigieg, yeah, hi. President Obama here. Hey, listen, you don't have a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks of winning. And here's the deal. Meanwhile, if Joe gets elected, you could have a spot in his cabinet. How's that sound? Listen, here's the deal. We're going to cut off funding from the DNC and from different places. I can cut it off in a moment if you don't pull out. Okay, good. Can you get up on a press conference tonight and announce your support for Joe? Okay, great. Thanks. Amy Klobuchar. So on, so on. That's what happened. And some people are going to try to gaslight me and tell me, no, that's not what happened, Toby. That's not what happened at all. What happened was that Joe's ideas were more... No, they weren't. Joe Biden is a candidate who... I don't know what's going on with him. I'm not going to say dementia. I'm going to say it in the spect of... or in the thought of that he is not able to complete a sentence. He's struggling on that campaign stop. He is making gaffes that a person who has been in politics since 1985, or I'm sorry, the 1970s, shouldn't be making. He is making severe gaffes. These are real gaffes that he is making. And they're not chuckle over, it's not funny, it's not cute. These aren't just like, oh, well, whatever. These are legitimate. The man is suffering. So where does that leave us? I'm going to finish out here. Where does that leave us? Where is the hope, Toby? You're up here, okay, Bernie sucks for pulling out. AOC didn't stand up to the blah, blah, blah. And you're really upset. And you feel that it's a lot of BS. And Biden sucks. Well, what is the way forward? Well, here it is, kids. Here's the way forward, and this is the whole point of this podcast. We need to organize. We cannot trust in these politicians to do the right thing unless we kick their butt to do it. That's where the hope is. That's where it's always going to be, and that's certainly where it's going to be right now. So if you are, and I want to apologize because I'm wearing a headset tonight. I might be scraping. If you're hearing weird sound, that's why. We have to organize. Now, what do we organize for and what about? Well, I think that first and foremost, a couple things that we need to do to organize. And I'll talk about this more in my next podcast. But the first things that we need to do is, number one, when we run a progressive politician or somebody, we run twice. We run that progressive politician as a Democrat inside the Democratic Party during the time of the Democratic caucus election or Democratic point. But if they get a sizable amount and there's skullduggery afoot that we've seen in the Bernie campaign, that person needs to run independent. Frankly, if Bernie had a spine at this point in his life, he should run independent. Bernie won't. He doesn't have a spine. That's not happening. And I understand. By the way, with all due respect to Bernie, he's 78. Love the guy. I love his politics. Love what he's about. But let's be real. He's 78 years old and came off a heart attack. The man gave us what he could. And I'm being hard on Bernie because essentially he just ran out of steam. And we all knew that there was a chance that was going to happen. It's real. But in terms of the way forward, the first thing is that in terms of electoral politics, a progressive candidate who says, I'm a progressive candidate, right, as a Democrat, needs to be willing to run twice. They need to be willing to run where they can for the immediate sponsorship of the Democratic vote. If they lose that, they got to run a second time for it, especially if they get above 20% of the vote. I'm just throwing that number out. You could say 15, you could say 30, it doesn't matter. They need to run twice. That's going to be a big piece because the Democratic establishment is a machine and they don't care and they won't care. So that's the first piece. The second piece is this. For the unemployed workers, I call it the March 1st initiative. In fact, I think that's what it's got to be. The March 1st initiative is that all workers need to be restored back to March 1st. As soon as when the crisis is formally lifted, the goal has to be to get back to March 1st. That's going to be huge because a lot of these, the world doesn't sit still even when you're on COVID-19. A lot of these companies aren't going to be able to come back. They aren't. There's going to be shopping malls, different things that are going to go under, hotels that are going to go under. We don't know. Some of them may survive, some of them may not. I don't know. Some of them may get a financial incentive to survive because of state support. Whether those benefits come to workers or not is a whole other matter. Because the reality is that what the company and the